Hey everyone, tonight we're diving deep, way back into the golden heart of West Africa, into an empire literally dripping with so much wealth it makes today's billionaires look like they're searching for loose change in their couches. We're journeying to the 14th century, to the Mali Empire, and specifically, we're going to try and imagine what it was like to anticipate, prepare, or even just hear about the breakfast of the richest man who ever lived, Mansa Musa. Picture waking up, and your biggest concern is whether the solid gold platters for your morning fruit have been polished enough. You'd probably just trip over a stray gold nugget on your way to the ancient. Well, they didn't have automated espresso machines back then, so let's just say your morning beverage was a bit more bespoke. And frankly, with the kind of opulence we're about to explore, you probably wouldn't survive the sheer shock of seeing that much bling before your first cup of, well, whatever warm, spiced drink they were enjoying. Your modern sensibilities might just short circuit. So before you get all comfy and nestle into your pillows, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. No pressure, but it does help the algorithm gods smile upon us. And while you're at it, maybe drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's always fascinating to see how far these sleepy stories travel. Now switch off those lights, get your fan on for some gentle white noise, and let's begin tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing on the edge of a vast, sun-drenched savanna. It's the early 14th century, somewhere around the year 1320, give or take a season. The air that greets you is warm, almost hot, and carries the fine reddish dust of the Sahel. It's a scent that's earthy and ancient, a fragrance that whispers of long journeys and the slow, patient rhythm of time. As you breathe it in, you can almost taste the immense, sprawling territory that is the Mali Empire. Forget your modern maps of tidy nation-states. This is an empire that at its zenith was larger than all of Western Europe combined. It stretches from the Atlantic coast, where salty breezes mingle with the scent of mangrove, eastward into the very heart of the continent, encompassing lands that today would make up Mali, Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, Niger, Nigeria, Chad, Mauritania, and Burkina Faso. It's a colossal tapestry of peoples, languages, and landscapes. You begin to walk, or perhaps you're on a swaying camel, part of a slow-moving caravan. The landscape isn't the monotonous expanse of sand dunes you might first imagine when you hear Sahara. Yes, the desert is a formidable presence, its shifting sands a constant reminder of nature's power. But Mali is also blessed by the life-giving waters of the Niger River. As you draw closer to its banks, the scenery transforms. Lush, fertile lands appear, ribboning through the drier plains. Here, farmers cultivate millet, sorghum, and rice, their green fields a vibrant contrast to the ochre earth. You see acacia trees, their thorny branches silhouetted against the vast sky, and the occasional baobab, its ancient, swollen trunk a silent witness to centuries of history. The sheer scale of it all is humbling. This is an empire built not just on conquest, but on its masterful understanding and utilization of these diverse environments. This control over vast territories and crucial trade arteries, particularly the trans-Saharan routes, is a cornerstone of its immense power and wealth. The Mali Empire was, in essence, a giant of its time, a dominant force in African and, by extension, world affairs, even if Europe was largely unaware of its true scale and sophistication back then. Your journey eventually leads you towards Niani, the legendary capital of the Mali Empire. Don't picture a city of towering stone like Rome or Constantinople. Niani's grandeur is of a different, perhaps more organic kind. It's a sprawling metropolis, a vibrant tapestry of reddish-brown earthen architecture. Buildings are constructed from banko, a sun-dried mud brick, giving the city a warm, cohesive look, as if it has grown directly from the soil it stands upon. Mosques, with their distinctive, slightly tapered minarets, rise above the single and double-story dwellings, their walls often studded with wooden beams that serve both as structural support and decorative elements, a style famously known as Sudano-Sahelian architecture. You see wide, bustling thoroughfares, but also a labyrinth of narrower alleyways, each promising new sights, sounds, and smells. The city hums with life. It's a major commercial hub, and the marketplace, or souk, is an explosion of sensory information. The air is thick with the aroma of spices you can't quite name, perhaps grains of paradise, a hint of ginger, the sweet scent of dates and figs piled high. You hear the rhythmic clang of blacksmiths at work, the murmur of countless conversations in a multitude of tongues, Malinka, Bambara, Fula, Soninka, and the Arabic of traders from across the Sahara. Merchants haggle animatedly over bolts of vibrant, indigo-dyed cotton, shimmering gold dust measured out with delicate scales, blocks of precious salt, looking like slabs of dull crystal, and intricately crafted leather goods. Children dart through the crowds, their laughter echoing, while donkeys laden with goods bray impatiently. Trying to navigate Niani without some kind of internal compass or a very patient local guide would be an adventure in itself. You'd probably feel like you'd walked through 3 different centuries and 4 distinct culinary festivals just trying to find the equivalent of a public restroom. It's this vibrant, organized chaos, this constant flow of goods and people, that underscores Niani's importance as the heart of a wealthy and powerful empire. You are an observer here, perhaps a visiting merchant from a distant land, a scholar drawn by tales of Niani's learning, or even a minor functionary within the sprawling imperial administration. From your vantage point, you begin to piece together the world of the man who sits at the apex of this vast domain, Mansa Musa. Before he became the global legend, known for a Hajj that literally changed the value of gold, he was a ruler consolidating and wisely managing this incredible inheritance. His full title, Mansa Musa Keita I, connects him directly to the dynastic founder of the Mali Empire, Sundiata Keita, the legendary Lion King of the Mandinka people. The title Mansa itself isn't just king. It implies king of kings or emperor, a sovereign overseeing numerous lesser kings and governors who rule various territories within the empire, but owe him their allegiance and, crucially, their tribute. In these years, perhaps around 1320, before the great pilgrimage of 1324 that would etch his name into world history, Mansa Musa's focus is on governance, on maintaining the stability and prosperity of his realm. He inherited a well-structured state, thanks to Sundiata and his successors, with organized agricultural production, efficient systems for tax collection, often in kind, goods, grain, or gold, and a standing army to protect its borders and trade routes. His early reign is characterized by strengthening these institutions, ensuring the smooth flow of commerce, and fostering the Islamic faith, which was already well established among the ruling and merchant classes. He isn't yet the figure of almost mythical opulence that later accounts would paint, but rather a shrewd and capable administrator of an already incredibly wealthy state. He is a patron of learning, and you hear whispers of his plans to further elevate Niani and Timbuktu as centers of Islamic scholarship. The wealth that underpins everything in Mali, the wealth that will eventually allow Mansa Musa to embark on his astonishing pilgrimage, comes primarily from three sources: gold, salt, and the control of trans-Saharan trade. The empire is blessed with some of the richest gold fields in the world at that time, particularly the Bambuk, Bure, and Akan gold fields, located to the south and west. Gold isn't mined with deep shafts and heavy machinery as you might imagine. Rather, it's often alluvial gold, panned from rivers or dug from shallow pits. This silent gold is the lifeblood of the empire. Salt, equally precious in an era before refrigeration for preserving food and essential for health in the hot climate, comes from mines like Tagaza in the Sahara Desert to the north. Here, salt is quarried in large slabs, so pure it's said to be used as currency itself. Caravans of camels, sometimes numbering in the thousands, traverse the perilous desert, carrying this salt south to Mali, where it's traded for gold and other goods. Mali, under Mansa Musa, sits astride these critical trade routes, acting as a broker and a beneficiary. The empire doesn't just control the source of gold, it controls its movement, taxing the trade and ensuring its own prosperity. One of the most fascinating and somewhat peculiar aspects of this gold trade, especially with some of the more remote gold-producing communities on the forest fringes, is the practice of silent trade, or dumb barter. Historians like al-Umari, writing a bit later based on accounts from Musa's Hajj, described versions of this. Imagine this. Malian merchants would travel to a designated spot near the gold-producing region. They would lay out their goods, salt, textiles, copper, and tools, and then retreat out of sight, perhaps beating a drum to signal their offering. The local gold miners, deeply private and wishing to protect the secret locations of their mines, and perhaps due to language barriers or cultural traditions of avoiding direct contact, would then emerge, inspect the goods, and place what they considered a fair amount of gold dust next to them. They too would then retreat. The merchants would return, and if they were satisfied with the amount of gold, they'd take it and leave the goods. If not, they'd leave everything as it was and retreat again, signaling they wanted more. This could go back and forth a few times until an agreement was reached, all without a word spoken or direct interaction. It sounds like the most elaborate, high-stakes game of leave a penny, take a penny you've ever encountered. You can just imagine a merchant muttering to himself, "Okay, are these 3 extra grains of gold an acceptance of my last offer for the blue cloth, or are they just really, really shiny dirt?" The ambiguity must have been maddening at times. The system, however odd it sounds, apparently worked for centuries, built on a strange kind of trust and mutual necessity. Mansa Musa, overseeing this incredible economic engine, would have had advisors and treasurers whose jobs were, in essence, to manage a mountain of gold. It's almost comical to think about the financial planning meetings. The minutes probably just read Agenda Item 1, gold. Status, still lots of it. Agenda Item 2, more gold. Decision, yes, please. Of course, it was far more complex, involving maintaining trade relationships, ensuring the security of caravans, and managing the distribution of wealth to maintain loyalty and fund the state. But the sheer scale of it is mind-boggling. As dawn begins to break over Niani, the city slowly awakens, and you, our observer, start to sense the rhythm of daily life that will eventually lead us to consider what a man like Mansa Musa might have for breakfast. The first, faint light paints the eastern sky in hues of soft pearl and rose. The air is cooler now, a welcome respite from the lingering heat of the previous day. The earliest sound to drift across the city is often the adhan, the Islamic call to prayer, chanted melodiously from the minarets of the city's mosques. Mansa Musa himself is a devout Muslim, and the faith permeates the life of the court and the city's commercial activities. For many, the day begins with ablutions and prayer, a moment of quiet contemplation before the bustle begins. What would your own morning look like if you were, say, a well-to-do merchant or a scholar living in Niani? After prayers, you might break your fast with something simple yet nourishing. Millet or sorghum porridge, perhaps, called fura or cherek, sweetened with wild honey or milk from goats or cattle. Fresh fruits would be plentiful, especially those that thrive in the Sahelian climate. Dates brought by caravan from the northern oases, juicy figs, perhaps melons or wild berries depending on the season. Along the Niger River, where rice cultivation was sophisticated, boiled rice might be a staple. For those with a bit more means, perhaps some grilled fish, freshly caught from the river, seasoned with local spices. The smells of small cooking fires would begin to mingle with the morning air, a comforting, universally human aroma. Now imagine the royal palace, a sprawling complex of interconnected buildings, courtyards, and audience chambers. Even at this early hour, the royal kitchens would be a veritable hive of activity, a small army of cooks, servants, and attendants already hard at work. They aren't just preparing a meal for the Mansa, they're catering to his vast household. This includes his wives, concubines, children, numerous court officials, advisors, visiting dignitaries, the royal guard, and countless other retainers. The logistics must have been staggering. Picture huge clay ovens, bubbling pots over open fires, the rhythmic sound of grains being pounded in large wooden mortars, and the constant coming and going of servants fetching water, firewood, and ingredients. It's an operation that runs with practiced efficiency, honed by generations of serving the rulers of Mali. The ingredients available to the royal chefs would be the finest the empire could offer. Sorghum, millet, and fonio would be staples, prepared in various ways, as porridge, couscous-like grains, or flatbreads. Rice, especially the prized African rice, or Izaglaberima, cultivated extensively along the fertile floodplains of the Niger, would certainly feature prominently. Yams and various types of beans and gourds would add variety. Protein would come from fowl. Guinea fowl were particularly common and esteemed, as well as mutton and beef, though large livestock were a sign of considerable wealth. Game from the savannah, like antelope or gazelle, might also make an appearance on special occasions. And then there are the spices, the subtle but essential elements that elevate simple ingredients. While Mali itself produced some, like grains of paradise, also known as meligeta pepper, with its pungent, peppery flavor. Other more exotic spices like black pepper, cloves, or cinnamon would have arrived via the trans Saharan caravans, making them incredibly expensive and reserved for the elite. Historians still debate the exact layout and architectural complexity of Mansa Musa's palace in Niani, because most of the structures were made of banco, which requires regular maintenance and is susceptible to erosion. The archaeological footprint is less distinct than, say, stone ruins. Was it a single, massive, fortified compound, or a more dispersed collection of grand pavilions, audience halls, private residences, and gardens, all interconnected by shaded walkways and courtyards? Ibn Battuta, the famous traveler who visited Niani about 2 decades after Mansa Musa's Hajj, described audience ceremonies and parts of the palace, but the day-to-day domestic arrangements, especially of the kitchens and private quarters, remain somewhat speculative, pieced together from oral traditions, later accounts, and archaeological clues. It's one of those fascinating areas where the historical record is tantalizingly incomplete, leaving room for imagination. Trying to get a sense of the palace's scale, if you were, say, a new servant trying to deliver a message, might have been a week-long affair. Excuse me, is this the West Wing, or did I take a wrong turn at the giant baobab in the third courtyard? I'm looking for the guy who polishes the ceremonial ostrich eggs. Now let's imagine the Mansa himself, Mansa Musa, beginning his day. His personal chambers would undoubtedly be opulent, furnished with the finest textiles, intricately woven mats, and perhaps cushions covered in dyed leather or imported silks. Yet even in his private sphere, Islamic tradition would likely encourage a degree of personal piety and simplicity, a contrast to the magnificent public displays of wealth designed to awe his subjects and foreign visitors. His morning routine would certainly involve prayer. After his devotions, attention would turn to his first meal of the day, his breakfast. What would this entail for the man who could command almost limitless resources? It's unlikely to have been a single, unvarying dish day after day, like your modern bowl of cereal. Instead, think of abundance, variety, and the highest quality. He would have enjoyed the best of what the royal kitchens produced, perhaps a delicate porridge made from the finest fonio grains, sweetened with rare honey collected from deep in the bush, and topped with fresh, luscious dates and perhaps a scattering of chopped nuts. There might be small, savory cakes made from ground beans or tubers, subtly spiced, perhaps tender pieces of grilled guinea fowl or young goat, seasoned to perfection. Exotic fruits, not just those locally available, but also those that might have been carefully transported by fast camel courier from distant parts of the empire or beyond, could have graced his table, pomegranates, citrus if available. Water, or perhaps a refreshing drink made from fermented millet or sorghum, or even a spiced milk beverage, would be served in finely crafted earthenware, or perhaps even imported glassware. The key here is the access to variety and the labor to prepare it perfectly. While the common person ate well from the bounty of the land, the Mansa ate from the curated bounty of an entire empire. Every ingredient would be the choicest, every preparation meticulous. The concept of Mansa Musa's breakfast isn't just about the food itself, but what it represents, the pinnacle of a sophisticated agricultural and trade system, the labor of countless individuals, and the concentration of immense wealth. Food also played a crucial role in courtly life and diplomacy. Sharing a meal was a sign of trust and alliance. Offering specific choice dishes to a guest was a mark of high favor. Even the Mansa's personal meals were, in a sense, a political statement, reflecting the prosperity and stability of his reign. This daily ritual, the breaking of the fast, would have been a moment of relative calm for Mansa Musa before the official business of the day commenced, receiving petitioners, consulting with advisors, dispensing justice, and managing the intricate affairs of his vast empire. It was the quiet intake of sustenance that fueled a day of immense responsibility, all before he even conceived of the journey that would make him a household name across continents. You can imagine him, perhaps, taking a quiet moment, looking out over a private courtyard as the sun climbed higher, the aroma of his carefully prepared meal, a subtle reminder of the immense, complex, and incredibly rich world over which he presided. He probably didn't have to worry about washing the dishes, though. That's one perk of being Mansa. Someone else always has KP duty, even if KP stands for kingly platters. The comfortable, predictable cadence of life in Niani, with its bustling markets and the reassuring routines of the royal court, begins to shift. You, as our ever-present observer, notice a subtle change in the air, an undercurrent of excitement, and perhaps a touch of trepidation. There are more hushed conversations in the palace corridors, important-looking officials with serious expressions hurrying to and fro, and scrolls of parchment being consulted with greater frequency. Mansa Musa, the devout Muslim ruler, has made a decision of profound personal and spiritual significance. He will undertake the Hajj, the sacred pilgrimage to Mecca. This isn't a decision taken lightly. For a West African Muslim in the 14th century, the Hajj is an arduous, expensive, and potentially perilous journey, spanning thousands of miles across the vast and unforgiving Sahara Desert, then through Egypt and across the Arabian Peninsula. It's a monumental undertaking, a testament to his faith, but also, as it will turn out, an unparalleled opportunity to showcase the immense wealth and sophistication of his Mali empire to the wider Islamic world and beyond. This adherence to the pillars of Islam, including the Hajj, was a mainstream expectation for a ruler of his standing, a way to legitimize his rule further in the eyes of his Muslim subjects and the broader Islamic community. Imagine the initial planning meetings. If you think organizing a family vacation is tough, try coordinating a transcontinental religious pilgrimage for, well, an entire mobile city. The logistics are mind-boggling. How much water will tens of thousands of people and thousands of camels need to cross the Sahara? Where will it come from? How much food? What about security through lands controlled by potentially hostile desert tribes? What diplomatic arrangements need to be made with territories they'll pass through, like Egypt? The initial packing list probably started with gold, lots of it, and then someone, a very brave and practical advisor, might have tentatively raised a hand and whispered, "Perhaps some food and water as well, Your Majesty." Practicality often takes a back seat when you're planning the world's most extravagant road trip, but even Mansa Musa couldn't ignore the basic necessities for such a colossal endeavor. Word begins to spread, first as rumors, then as official pronouncements. The Mansa is going to Mecca. A ripple of anticipation and activity energizes Niani. Recruiters fan out across the empire. Soldiers are needed for the honor guard and to protect the caravan from bandits. Officials and administrators are selected to manage the complex logistics of the journey and to govern the empire in Musa's absence, though he would appoint his son Magan as regent. Scholars, imams, and learned men are invited to accompany the Mansa, both to provide spiritual guidance and to enhance the intellectual prestige of the mission. And then there are the attendants, the servants, the cooks, the camel drivers, the baggage handlers, a veritable army of support staff. Every detail, from the mending of sandals to the preparation of the Mansa's meals on the move, needs to be considered. The scale of this human mobilization is unlike anything seen before in this part of the world. As the months of preparation wear on, the area outside Niani begins to transform. A temporary city, a vast encampment of tents, animals, and people springs up on the plains. The sheer scale of the caravan being assembled is staggering. While precise numbers are debated by historians, contemporary and near-contemporary Arab chroniclers like al-Umari and Ibn Khaldun, drawing from accounts of those who witnessed it, paint a picture of an immense procession. Some accounts suggest as many as 60,000 people. This includes around 12,000 personal attendants or slaves, each said to be sumptuously dressed in silk and carrying necessities or luxuries. Then there are the soldiers, perhaps 8,000 to 10,000 strong, forming a protective cordon. Add to this the merchants who often joined such large caravans for safety, the scholars, the royal household, and all their respective entourages. And the animals, camels, thousands upon thousands of them, the ships of the desert, essential for carrying the bulk of the supplies, and of course, the gold. Horses, too, for the cavalry and important personages, though camels are better suited for the deep desert. You wander through this bustling temporary city. The air is thick with the smell of cooking fires, animals, dust, and anticipation. You see mountains of supplies being organized, sacks of millet, sorghum, and rice, bundles of dried meat and fish, pyramids of dates and other preserved fruits. Water is the most critical commodity. Thousands upon thousands of leather water skins, or gerbas, are being prepared, treated, and filled. Blacksmiths are busy shoeing horses and repairing equipment. Weavers and leather workers make last-minute adjustments to saddles, harnesses, and tents. The diversity of people is astounding. Mandinka, Bambara, Fulani, Soninka, Tuareg guides with their distinctive indigo veils, Arab traders, a microcosm of the vast Mali Empire and its connections, all united by this singular purpose. One of the most visually stunning and talked about details, a truly quirky yet potent display of wealth, is the claim that many of Mansa Musa's personal attendants, perhaps a vanguard of 500, each carried a staff of pure gold, weighing several pounds. Imagine that procession moving across the landscape, hundreds of golden staves glinting in the African sun. It's a display that's almost impossible to comprehend in its sheer audacity and opulence. It wasn't just about having golds. It was about showing you had so much you could use it for walking sticks for your servants. The organizational effort to get this diverse, massive group moving in a coordinated fashion is immense. Marching orders are established, sections are assigned, and leaders for each group are designated. Ensuring that provisions are distributed equitably and that water discipline is maintained will be a constant challenge. You just know there was one incredibly stressed individual whose title was probably something like Supreme Coordinator of Camel Baggage and Forward Planning for Dung Disposal. The unsung heroes of these epic journeys are always the logisticians. If they had project management software back then, it would have just crashed trying to compute the variables for this undertaking. Finally, the day of departure arrives. It must have been an electrifying moment in Niani. The air crackles with a mixture of excitement, solemnity, and the sheer kinetic energy of thousands of souls and beasts ready to move. The sounds are a symphony of human voices, the shuffling and braying of camels, the neighing of horses, the beating of drums, and perhaps the strains of music from royal musicians. Dust rises in great clouds, coating everything in a fine red powder as the colossal caravan slowly, ponderously, begins to unfurl and snake its way out of the capital, heading northeast. You are swept along with it, a tiny speck in this human river, feeling the ancient rhythm of a great caravan setting out on a momentous journey. The slow, steady pace is relentless, dictated by the endurance of the camels and the need to conserve water and energy. Each day follows a similar pattern: rise before dawn, pack, march through the coolest parts of the day, rest during the oppressive midday heat, and then perhaps another shorter march in the late afternoon before making camp for the night. The initial stages of the journey take you through the Sahel, the semi-arid transitional zone between the savanna and the true desert. The heat is intense, the sun a relentless white disk in a pale sky. Dust is your constant companion, getting into your eyes, your nose, your food. Finding adequate water sources is a primary concern. The caravan relies on established wells and oases, places like Walata, an important trading post and center of Islamic scholarship on the very edge of the Sahara. Walata, with its distinctive Banco architecture, serves as a crucial staging point before the caravan plunges into the more challenging desert interior. The expertise of the guides, often Sanhaja Berbers or Tuaregs, is paramount here. These men of the desert know the routes, the subtle signs in the landscape that indicate a hidden well or a patch of grazing, the dangers of sandstorms, and the locations of friendly or hostile tribes. Their knowledge is literally the difference between life and death for a caravan of this size. You watch them, weathered and robed, scanning the horizon with an acuity that seems almost supernatural. As the caravan moves, Mansa Musa's legendary generosity is already becoming apparent. At each significant stop, he distributes alms, gifts of gold dust, to the local communities, to mosques, and to the needy. This isn't just charity, it's also a display of his wealth and piety, a way of smoothing the passage of his caravan and enhancing his reputation as a benevolent and powerful ruler. The sight of this river of gold beginning to flow out of Mali is astonishing. You can imagine the local traders and townspeople, their eyes wide as pouches of gleaming gold dust are handed out. It's like a mythical king from a storybook has come to life, showering gold wherever he goes. Oh, another Tuesday, another king giving away a fortune. They probably didn't say, because this was anything but ordinary. The journey across the Sahara itself is the most grueling part. Historians still debate the exact route Mansa Musa's massive caravan took through this vast ocean of sand. While major oases and trading posts like Walata, the salt mining center of Tagaza, and the Tuat Oasis complex are generally accepted as key points along the way, the precise paths between them are less certain. How did such an enormous group, effectively a mobile city, navigate without detailed maps or GPS? How did they manage sanitation to prevent outbreaks of disease? How did they ensure discipline and order over such a long and stressful period? These are questions that engage scholars who piece together clues from geographical knowledge, archaeological findings, though scant in the deep desert, and the often generalized accounts of chroniclers. Some theories suggest they followed ancient, well trodden paths marked by generations of previous caravans, while others propose that Musa's caravan, due to its size, may have had to forge or widen certain sections, or perhaps even split into more manageable groups for parts of the journey. The logistics of supplying water to so many over such distances remain a particularly debated topic, likely involving advance parties to secure wells, or even the laborious transport of vast quantities of water. One of the most surreal stops on this trans-Saharan trek is the salt mining town of Tagaza. Imagine arriving, after weeks of seeing nothing but sand and rock, at a settlement where the very buildings are constructed from blocks of salt. The mines of Tagaza are a crucial source of the salt that is traded for Mali's gold. The conditions here are harsh, the work backbreaking, but the product is as valuable as gold in many parts of Africa. You see the miners, their skin caked with salt and dust, toiling to extract these heavy, crystalline slabs. The houses, gleaming dully in the desert light, look almost edible, though you probably wouldn't want to lick the walls. It's a stark, strangely beautiful, and utterly unique place, a testament to human resilience and the extraordinary lengths people will go to for precious commodities. You try to make a joke to your camel about whether it prefers its salt in block or granular form, but it just gives you that typical disdainful camel look, clearly unimpressed with your desert humor. Seriously, a town made of salt? What happens when it rains? You ponder before remembering you're in the middle of the Sahara, and rain is about as common as a penguin at a Tuareg tea party. After many arduous months, enduring scorching days, freezing nights, the occasional sandstorm, and the ever-present threat of dehydration or getting lost, the great caravan, thinned perhaps by hardship, but still immense, finally emerges from the desert. The sight of the fertile Nile Valley, green and teeming with life, must have been an almost overwhelming relief, a vision of paradise after the hell of the Sahara. You have reached Egypt, a land of ancient wonders, and at this time, a vibrant center of Islamic civilization under the Mamluk Sultanate. The arrival of Mansa Musa and his golden entourage in Cairo in July 1324 is an event that will be talked about for generations. It creates an unprecedented sensation, a cultural and economic earthquake. Cairo is a bustling, sophisticated metropolis, far larger and more densely populated than Niani. Its markets are legendary, its mosques and madrasas renowned throughout the Islamic world. As Mansa Musa's caravan approaches, news of his wealth and the sheer size of his retinue precedes him. The Cairenes are abuzz with anticipation and disbelief. When he finally makes his formal entry, it's a spectacle unlike any they have witnessed. Thousands of richly attired West Africans, the gleam of gold everywhere, on their persons, on their staffs, on the very camels carrying their baggage. Mansa Musa himself, dignified and regal, is a figure of immense curiosity and respect. His initial diplomatic encounters with the ruling Mamluk Sultan al-Nasir Muhammad, are a delicate dance of protocol. There's a famous anecdote recounted by al-Umari concerning Musa's initial reluctance to prostrate himself before the Sultan, as was customary for visiting dignitaries. Musa, as a powerful emperor in his own right, reportedly argued that he only prostrated himself before God. Eventually, a compromise was reached, with Musa agreeing to bow to God in the Sultan's presence, thus satisfying protocol while preserving his own dignity. It's a small but telling incident that highlights Musa's awareness of his own status. But it is Mansa Musa's incredible, almost reckless generosity with gold that truly leaves its mark on Cairo. He spends lavishly, giving gifts of gold to the Sultan and his officials, to religious scholars, to merchants, to the poor, to almost everyone he encounters. He floods the markets with so much gold, purchasing goods, property, and services, that he reportedly depresses the value of gold in Cairo for more than a decade. This is perhaps the most famous mainstream historical fact associated with his Hajj. Imagine an entire city's economy being visibly affected by one man's shopping spree. Merchants who traded in gold suddenly find its purchasing power diminished. Moneylenders and currency exchangers are thrown into confusion. The price of everyday goods, when bought with gold, fluctuates wildly. You witness the souks of Cairo, usually a model of established commerce, in a state of excited chaos. Gold, once a symbol of ultimate wealth, is suddenly common. It's as if someone backed up a fleet of trucks filled with cash to every shop in a modern city and just started handing out stacks. The interactions between Mansa Musa's retinue and the people of Cairo are a fascinating cultural exchange. West African customs, clothing, and languages meet those of Egypt. There are undoubtedly moments of mutual curiosity, perhaps some misunderstandings, but also opportunities for learning and connection. Scholars in Musa's entourage engage with their Cairene counterparts, exchanging knowledge and ideas. The markets become a melting pot where goods and stories are traded with equal fervor. For you, our observer, the contrast between the stark, silent emptiness of the desert journey and the noisy, vibrant, urban sophistication of Cairo is profound. It's a pivotal moment, a clear marker that Mansa Musa has not just arrived in a new land, but has also firmly announced his presence and that of his golden empire onto the world stage. The breakfast he might have enjoyed in Niani, a symbol of his imperial power back home, is now overshadowed by the sheer scale of the golden feast he is laying out for an entire international city. The great caravan, now the stuff of legend in Egypt, eventually reforms. It leaves Cairo, perhaps a little lighter in gold, but significantly heavier in reputation, and turns southeast, crossing the Sinai Peninsula. You can imagine the discussions among the travelers, the Cairenes still buzzing about the king who rained gold, as they venture into yet another challenging landscape. The journey now takes you through rugged mountains and stark valleys, the traditional route towards the holy cities of Arabia. The spiritual anticipation among the pilgrims in your group grows with each passing day. The physical hardships, though still considerable, are perhaps now tinged with a different kind of energy, the eagerness of nearing a sacred goal. And then you arrive, Mecca, the holiest city in Islam. For every Muslim in your vast entourage, from Mansa Musa himself down to the humblest camel driver who has managed to save enough to make this journey alongside his master, this is the culmination of a lifelong dream, a spiritual pinnacle. You see the Grand Mosque, the Kaaba, its simple, powerful, cubic form draped in black kiswa cloth, a sight that evokes deep emotion in the hearts of the faithful. You join the throngs of pilgrims from every corner of the known Islamic world, a kaleidoscope of ethnicities, languages, and cultures, all united in their devotion. Here, Mansa Musa, the fabulously wealthy emperor, is also just another pilgrim, performing the ancient rituals of the Hajj. The Tawaf, circling the Kaaba, the Sa'i, walking and running between the hills of Safa and Marwa, the stoning of the devil at Mina, and the prayers on the plain of Arafat. His devotion is evident, but so is his continued, almost compulsive generosity. Even here, in the holiest of cities, Mansa Musa distributes vast sums of gold. He funds the construction and renovation of mosques, contributes to the digging of wells to provide water for pilgrims, a critical act of charity in this arid land, and gives lavishly to other pilgrims, scholars, and the residents of Mecca and later Medina. This pious spending in the holy cities is a well-documented aspect of his Hajj, further solidifying his image as a benevolent and deeply religious ruler. It wasn't just about showing off wealth. It was about fulfilling religious obligations to share one's blessings. Of course, when your blessings involve literal tons of gold, sharing it tends to make quite an impression. The Malian contingent itself is a significant presence. Their sheer numbers, their distinct West African attire, their own traditions of Islamic practice and scholarship, which while orthodox would have had regional flavors, make them a noticeable group among the diverse pilgrim population. Imagine the logistical ballet of accommodating and feeding such a large and specific group within the already crowded and resource-stretched environment of Mecca during the Hajj season. Did they try to recreate Malian cuisine? It's a quirky little detail to ponder. Perhaps they brought specialist cooks and a significant supply of non-perishable West African staples like dried fonio or specific spices. Or did they largely adapt to the Arabian diet of dates, lamb, and flatbreads available in the Hijaz? Most likely it was a bit of both, with the royal household ensuring the Mansa had access to familiar comforts while also partaking in the local fare. You can just picture a Malian chef desperately trying to explain to a Meccan merchant through gestures and a rapidly diminishing supply of patience that yes, he really does need that specific type of chili pepper for the Mansa's evening meal, not the local variety which is entirely too placid. Beyond the rituals and the charitable giving, Mansa Musa is also on an intellectual and cultural mission. He actively seeks out and engages with scholars, theologians, architects, and men of learning. His vision extends beyond his own spiritual fulfillment. He aims to bring back knowledge, talent, and new ideas to enrich his empire, particularly to elevate Timbuktu as a preeminent center of Islamic scholarship. It's during this time in Mecca, or perhaps shortly thereafter, that he famously encounters and recruits Abu Ishaq Ibrahim al-Sahili, an Andalusian poet and architect from Granada. Al-Sahili, a man versed in the more sophisticated building techniques of Islamic Spain and North Africa, agrees to return with Mansa Musa to Mali, a decision that will have a lasting impact on the architectural landscape of West Africa. It's like Musa went Hajj, shopping not just for spiritual enlightenment, but also for the best talent he could find. Forget souvenirs, he might have thought. I'm bringing back a Renaissance man. Eventually, the rites of the Hajj are completed. The spiritual obligations fulfilled, thoughts turn towards the long journey home. The caravan prepares to leave Arabia, laden not just with the memories of Mecca and Medina, but also with books, manuscripts, and the new scholars and artisans like al-Sahili who have been persuaded to join the Mansa's retinue. The return journey, however, presents a new set of challenges. Having distributed gold with such an open hand, an almost unbelievable story circulates. Mansa Musa reportedly ran short of funds for the return trip. Some accounts suggest he had to borrow money at considerable interest from merchants in Cairo to finance his caravan's journey back across the Sahara to Mali. This is a striking reversal from his ostentatious arrival and a fascinating mainstream historical anecdote. The man who had depressed the value of gold with his spending now found himself needing a loan. It's a reminder that even for the wealthiest man in the world, resources are not infinite, especially when your generosity knows few bounds. The caravan that heads west back towards Mali is still vast, still impressive, but perhaps its character has subtly shifted. It's less a procession of pure, unadulterated golden power and more a carrier of cultural and intellectual treasures. The soldiers are still there, the attendants, the camels, but now there are also crates of precious books, scientific instruments, and individuals who represent a new wave of learning and skill destined for the heart of West Africa. For those who survived the entire pilgrimage, the harsh desert crossings, the crowds of Mecca, the diseases that often plagued such large gatherings, the transformation would have been profound. They had seen the wider Islamic world, encountered different cultures, and participated in one of the most significant acts of their faith. They would return to Mali not just as pilgrims, but as individuals with a broadened worldview. Historians still debate the full economic consequences of Mansa Musa's expenditures, particularly in Egypt. Did his spending and subsequent borrowing truly cause a long-lasting gold recession there, or was it a more temporary, albeit dramatic shock to the market? And how significantly did borrowing money affect Mali's own treasury upon his return? Given Mali's continued control over vast gold production, it's likely that any debts incurred were manageable for the empire, but the episode highlights the sheer scale of his spending abroad. It's a complex economic equation that scholars continue to analyze, weighing contemporary accounts against broader economic data from the period. Perhaps there was an awkward conversation back in Niani. Your Majesty, about that loan from the Egyptian merchant, his interest rate makes our local moneylenders look like philanthropists. Imagine the journey back through the Sahara. The challenges are familiar: the heat, the sand, the scarcity of water. But now there's also the accumulated fatigue of many months, even years of travel. Al-Sahili and the other non-Malians in the caravan must have looked out at the endless expanse of the desert with a mixture of awe and trepidation, journeying towards a land most of them had only heard about in vague, exotic terms. Their conversations with their Malian hosts, their gradual acclimatization to the food, the languages, the customs of the caravan would have been a slow immersion into the world they were about to help shape. You can picture al-Sahili, the sophisticated Andalusian architect, perhaps initially struggling with the swaying gait of his camel, sketching ideas for new buildings on any scrap of parchment he could find, while simultaneously trying to learn key phrases in Malinka. How do you say load bearing arch in Mandinka again? And does anyone have some water that hasn't been fermenting in a goatskin for 3 weeks? Finally, after an absence that likely spanned several years, the great caravan approaches Niani once more. The news of the Mansa's return spreads like wildfire. There must have been immense celebrations, relief, and curiosity to hear the tales of their ruler's incredible journey and to see the new people and treasures he brought back. Mansa Musa returns not just as a king who completed the Hajj, but as a figure of almost mythical status, his fame now echoing across continents. The impact of the Hajj is felt almost immediately back in Mali. True to his intentions, Mansa Musa sets about his project of cultural and religious enhancement. Abu Ishaq al-Sahili gets to work. He is credited with designing several significant structures, most famously the Gingereber Mosque in Timbuktu, a city that was already a commercial and scholarly center but was now destined for even greater prominence. He also reportedly constructed a new royal audience chamber in Niani. Al-Sahili introduced or popularized building techniques that were novel to the region, such as the use of baked bricks, as opposed to sun-dried banko, though banko remained predominant, and the characteristic pyramidal style of minarets and engaged columns that became hallmarks of Sudano-Sahelian architecture. This architectural flourishing is a direct, tangible legacy of the Hajj. Mansa Musa's reign ushers in what many consider the golden age of Timbuktu. With royal patronage, the city truly blossoms as a major center of Islamic learning and commerce. The Sankore Mosque, which housed the Sankore Madrasa, often referred to as the University of Sankore, becomes a renowned institution, attracting scholars and students from across Africa and the Middle East. Libraries are expanded, filled with manuscripts acquired during the Hajj and others painstakingly copied by local scribes. Subjects taught included theology, law, rhetoric, astronomy, medicine, mathematics, history, and geography. The scholarly output of Timbuktu during this period was immense. This flourishing of intellectual life is one of the most enduring legacies of Mansa Musa's reign and his vision, fueled by the connections and resources gained from his epic pilgrimage. This is a mainstream historical fact that continues to inspire awe. A city on the edge of the Sahara becoming a beacon of knowledge for the world. Reflecting now on Mansa Musa's breakfast, the concept takes on an even deeper meaning. It was never just about the food, the millet porridge, or the grilled guinea fowl. It was a symbol of the immense, almost unimaginable wealth of the Mali Empire, a wealth derived from gold, salt, and control over trans-Saharan trade. It was this wealth that allowed Mansa Musa to undertake his legendary Hajj, to dispense gold with such astonishing liberality that he altered economies, and crucially, to invest in the cultural and intellectual infrastructure of his empire, transforming cities like Timbuktu into legendary centers of learning. His reign marked the zenith of Malian power, prestige, and cultural achievement. The stories of his journey, immortalized in chronicles and even appearing on European maps like the Catalan Atlas of 1375, which depicts Musa Meli, the lord of the Negroes of Guinea, holding a golden orb, cemented Mali's place in the medieval world's imagination. After the Hajj, you can imagine breakfast conversations in the royal court in Niani being slightly more elevated. Perhaps between bites of honey sweetened dates, there were discussions about the latest theological debates from Mecca or new architectural plans from Al Sahili. More millet, Your Majesty? And would you care for a brief overview of the socio-economic impact of gold devaluation in Mamluk Egypt? It's quite the page-turner. The empire he shaped was not just rich in gold, but increasingly rich in knowledge, faith, and a unique cultural synthesis. The cool, soft quiet of the pre-dawn has long since passed. The sun, which rose on your imaginary journey in Niani, has traversed its arc across continents, witnessing royal breakfasts, epic caravans, bustling foreign cities, sacred rituals, and the triumphant return of a king who changed how the world saw his empire and how his empire saw the world. The story of Mansa Musa, of his golden breakfast and his even more golden pilgrimage, is a testament to a time when West Africa was a vibrant, powerful, and deeply connected part of the global stage. It's a story of faith, of wealth almost beyond imagining, and of a legacy built not just with gold, but with knowledge and vision. As the echoes of this incredible journey begin to fade, allow yourself to drift. The energy of the bustling markets, the shimmering heat of the desert, the quiet devotion in the holy cities. Let it all soften now. The immense caravan has reached its destination, its purpose fulfilled. The scholars are in their libraries. The architects are watching their designs rise, and the empire is at peace, basking in the glow of its golden age. There are no more miles to travel tonight, no more deserts to cross, just the gentle, steady rhythm of your own breath pulling you deeper into rest. The stories of the past are vast, like the Sahara itself, but for now, your journey through them is complete. The world of Mansa Musa, with all its splendor and its quiet morning moments, now recedes into the soft darkness. Let the details blur, the sounds become distant whispers. You are safe, you are comfortable, and it is time to sleep, to dream, perhaps of golden cities and wise rulers, or perhaps of nothing at all, just deep, restorative peace. Hey everyone, tonight we're setting sail on a journey that's almost impossible to comprehend in our modern, hyper-connected world. We're heading out onto the vast, seemingly endless expanse of the Pacific Ocean, not in a massive cruise ship or a GPS-guided yacht, but in a traditional Polynesian voyaging canoe. Imagine yourself, thousands of years ago, a tiny speck on an immense blue canvas, with nothing but the stars above. The feel of the ocean swells beneath you, and the collective courage of your community to guide you to microscopic, undiscovered islands, hundreds, even thousands of miles away. There's no Google Maps, no compass, no satellite phone, just human ingenuity, an intimate knowledge of the natural world, and an extraordinary ability to read the whispering ocean secrets. You, with your smartphone that holds the sum of human knowledge, yet you still can't quite remember where you parked your car, would probably end up discovering a new continent of bewildered seagulls about 5,000 miles off course, wondering where the Wi-Fi hotspot is. It's a level of skill and bravery that's truly humbling. So before you get all comfy and drift off into visions of starlit seas, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's like leaving a small offering to the sea gods of the algorithm, ensuring smooth sailing for future historical voyages. And if you'd be so kind, drop a comment telling us where you're listening from and what time it is in your part of the world. It's always a thrill to see how far these tales travel across the global ocean of listeners. Now switch off those lights, get your fan on for some gentle white noise. Perhaps imagine it's the sigh of the trade winds in your sails, and let's begin tonight's journey together. You find yourself on the deck of a Vaca Moana, a magnificent double-hulled voyaging canoe. The twin hulls, crafted from massive tree trunks, are lashed together with intricate patterns of sennit rope made from coconut husk fibers. Between the hulls, a sturdy wooden platform provides space for you, the crew, and precious cargo. A single tall mast rises from the center, supporting a distinctive crab claw-shaped sail woven from pandanus leaves, currently furled as you ride the gentle motion of the home lagoon, preparing for departure. The air is warm, humid, and alive with the scent of salt, damp wood, and the sweet fragrance of frangipani blossoms drifting from the nearby shore of your island home. Listen closely. You hear the gentle lapping of water against the hulls, the rhythmic creak of the coconut fiber lashings as the canoe flexes with the ocean's breath, the distant calls of seabirds, and the low murmur of your fellow voyagers speaking in a soft, melodic Polynesian tongue. Feel the gentle rocking motion, the sun warm on your skin, and the fine mist of sea spray that occasionally kisses your face. As you look out beyond the protective reef of your island, the Pacific Ocean stretches before you, an almost unbelievable expanse of blue. This is the largest single geographical feature on Earth, covering more area than all the planet's land masses combined. Your ancestors, and now you, are part of one of the most remarkable human migrations in history, the Austronesian expansion. Over thousands of years, these intrepid mariners, originating from lands in Southeast Asia, progressively explored and settled this vast liquid continent, island by island, group by group. Their voyages populated what we now call the Polynesian Triangle, a huge area of the Pacific with its corners at Hawaii in the north, Aotearoa, New Zealand, in the southwest, and Rapa Nui, Easter Island, in the southeast. Finding these isolated specks of land, often mere volcanic peaks or low-lying coral atolls separated by immense distances of open ocean, was an achievement of staggering proportions. What drove them? Perhaps population pressure on their home islands, a scarcity of resources, internal conflicts, or simply an insatiable spirit of adventure, a deep-seated cultural imperative to explore, to imiloa, to seek afar. Whatever the precise mix of motivations, their courage was undeniable. Your own idea of a long and arduous voyage might be that cross-country flight where they ran out of your preferred mediocre sandwich. These people were willingly launching into the unknown for months, sometimes years, with only the creatures of the sea for company and absolutely no guarantee of a complimentary beverage service, let alone landfall. At the heart of every one of these voyages, standing as a figure of immense respect, knowledge, and almost mystical authority, is the navigator, in some traditions known by titles like PWO in parts of Micronesia or Tohunga Wakatere Waka among the Maori. This individual is far more than just a sailor who knows how to steer. They are a scientist, an astronomer, a meteorologist, a naturalist, a spiritual leader, and the living repository of generations of accumulated maritime knowledge. Their training begins in childhood, an intensive apprenticeship that can last for decades. They must commit to memory an astounding amount of information, the precise rising and setting points of hundreds of stars and constellations as they arc across the sky throughout the year. The subtle patterns of ocean swells and how they refract and reflect around islands, the migratory paths of birds and marine mammals, the shapes and behaviors of different cloud formations and what they signal about weather and the potential presence of land, and, crucially, the memorized locations, bearings, and characteristics of countless islands, both real and legendary. This knowledge is passed down through purely oral tradition, chants, stories, genealogies, and intricate mental maps, sometimes aided by physical teaching devices, like stick charts in some cultures, though the primary chart is held within the navigator's mind. The navigator's role is often deeply intertwined with spiritual practices. They may observe specific kapu, taboos, or sacred prohibitions to maintain their ritual purity and connection with the guiding spirits and gods of the sea and sky. They are seen as intermediaries between the human world and the vast, powerful forces of nature. Their pronouncements are listened to with utmost seriousness for the lives of everyone on the Vaca, men, women, children, along with the precious plants and animals they carry to seed new homes, depend entirely on the navigator's skill, intuition, and unwavering focus. It's a burden of responsibility that is almost impossible for us to fathom in an age of redundant safety systems and instant communication. A quirky, almost unbelievable detail that often surfaces in accounts of these master navigators is their purported ability to sense the presence of land long before it is visible to the eye. Some were said to feel subtle changes in the rhythm of the ocean swells as they interacted with an unseen island, detecting a kind of rebound or confusion in the water. Others claimed they could discern the unique scent of vegetation or the dampness of an island's lagoon carried on the wind from dozens, even scores of miles away. It's as if they possessed an extended sensory array, a deep, almost primal connection to the environment that allowed them to perceive clues entirely missed by ordinary senses. They were like human bloodhounds, but their quarry was not a fugitive, but an entire ecosystem, a life-giving speck of land in a universe of water. Forget your standardized tests. The final examination for a budding Polynesian navigator probably involved being taken hundreds of miles out to sea, blindfolded, spun around a few times for good measure, and then being asked to not only point the way back to their home island, but also to describe the two nearest uninhabited atolls and the migratory patterns of the golden plover, while of course simultaneously composing a chant to appease the god of waves. The vessel that carries you on this extraordinary adventure, the Vaca or Wa'akaulua, is itself a masterpiece of Stone Age engineering and sophisticated design. Its twin hulls, often of slightly unequal length, provide exceptional stability in rough seas, far more so than a single-hulled vessel. This stability is crucial, not just for safety, but also for providing a relatively steady platform from which the navigator can make their observations. The hulls are sleek and V-shaped, allowing them to cut through the water efficiently. They are typically carved from single large tree trunks, such as koa or tamanu, hollowed out with adzes made of stone or shell. Planks might be added to raise the height of the sides, the gunnels or freeboard, meticulously sewn and caulked with natural resins to be watertight. These hulls are connected by a series of crossbeams, iako or kiato, which are not rigidly fixed, but lashed with miles of sennit rope in complex patterns that allow the entire structure to flex and absorb the stresses of ocean travel, much like the frame of a basket. This flexibility prevents the canoe from breaking apart in heavy seas. There are no metal fastenings of any kind, no nails, no bolts. Upon the central platform built over these crossbeams, a small shelter might be constructed, offering minimal protection from the sun and spray. The most distinctive feature, however, is the sail. Unlike the square sails common in Western traditions at the time, Polynesian voyaging canoes typically employed a triangular or crab claw sail, sometimes an inverted triangle, depending on the region and period. This sail, woven from strips of durable pandanus leaves sewn together into large mats, is remarkably efficient, particularly for sailing across or even somewhat into the wind. It can be tilted and angled with a complex system of ropes, allowing the vaca to tack and make progress against prevailing winds, a crucial capability for purposeful, two-way voyaging. You watch the experienced sailors handle this sail with an almost balletic grace, their movements economical and precise, responding to the navigator's quiet commands and the subtle shifts in the wind. Life aboard the vaca is a communal and often challenging existence. Space is at a premium. You are constantly exposed to the elements, the relentless sun during the day, the cool dampness of the night, the drenching spray from waves. Privacy is non-existent, yet there's a deep sense of shared purpose and interdependence. Provisions are carefully managed. These include preserved foodstuffs like fermented breadfruit paste, mesai or poi, dried taro or sweet potato, dried fish and shellfish, and crucially, coconuts, which provide not only nutritious flesh, but also vital drinking water. Fresh water is also carried in gourds or bamboo sections, but it is strictly rationed. The Polynesians were, in effect, carrying a portable version of their island environment with them. Alongside human passengers, the canoes often transported essential plants for cultivation in new lands, taro corms, breadfruit saplings, sugarcane, yams, bananas, and domestic animals like pigs, chickens, and dogs. Rats, the stowaway specialists, also invariably made the journey, much to the later chagrin of island ecosystems. Historians and archaeologists still engage in lively debate regarding the exact speeds and voyaging capabilities of these ancient Polynesian canoes. How consistently could they make progress against strong headwinds and currents? What were their average daily sailing distances? How did variations in canoe design and sail configuration across different island groups, for instance the Fijian Drua versus the Hawaiian Wa'akaulua or the Tahitian Pahi, affect their performance and the types of voyages they could undertake? Reconstructions of ancient canoes, like the famous Hokulea, and carefully documented replica voyages, have provided invaluable insights, demonstrating that these vessels were indeed highly capable of long-distance, navigated round trips. Yet the full spectrum of their performance characteristics in antiquity, under a range of conditions and with subtle variations in build, remains a fascinating area of ongoing research, piecing together clues from archaeology, linguistics, oral traditions, and experimental voyaging. Trying to imagine the amenities on board by modern standards is almost comical. The in-flight entertainment was a non-stop, panoramic, live-action display of stars, waves, and the occasional leaping dolphin. The luxury suite was the slightly less damp spot on the platform, perhaps sheltered by a spare sail. 5-star it was definitely not. But the ever-changing ocean views were without a doubt unparalleled, and the sense of being utterly immersed in the raw beauty and power of nature was something few humans today will ever experience. Now, as twilight deepens and the first stars begin to prick the darkening sky, the navigator truly comes into their own. This is their primary domain. Forget your sextant, your chronometer, your printed charts. The Polynesian navigator employs a far more ancient and intricate system, the star compass. This isn't a physical object you hold in your hand, but rather a deeply ingrained mental construct, a 360-degree map of the horizon marked by the precise points where specific stars and constellations rise in the east and set in the west throughout the night and throughout the year. Key navigational stars, often bright and easily identifiable, like Sirius, Aa in Hawaiian, the Southern Cross, Hanayakamalama, Scorpio, Kamakaunui Maui, or the Pleiades, Macaulay, serve as crucial direction pointers. For instance, if the navigator knows that their destination island lies in the direction where a particular star, say Antares, rises at a certain time of year, they will steer the Vaca towards that celestial bearing. A fundamental and highly sophisticated aspect of this stellar navigation was the ability to determine latitude. By observing a star that passes directly overhead, at its zenith, at a known island, the navigator could then sail north or south until that same star reached its zenith again. At that point, they knew they were at the same latitude as their target island, and could then turn east or west to sail down the latitude until landfall. This required an incredibly precise knowledge of star positions and an almost uncanny ability to judge when a star was perfectly overhead. But stars are not the only whispers the ocean offers to the keen navigator. The surface of the sea itself is a dynamic, ever-changing map. The navigator learns to differentiate between various types of wave patterns. There are the short, choppy, wind-driven waves directly created by the local wind. But more importantly, there are the deep ocean swells, long, rolling waves generated by distant storms, often hundreds or even thousands of miles away. These swells travel in consistent directions for vast distances. When such a swell encounters an island, even a small atoll, it will refract, bend around it, and reflect off it, creating subtle interference patterns on the leeward side. A skilled navigator, feeling the motion of the Vaca through the seat of their pants, or even by lying down on the platform to better sense these minute changes in rhythm and direction, could detect these patterns and thereby discern the bearing of an island that was still far below the horizon. They could distinguish between up to 5 or 6 different swells simultaneously, coming from different directions, each telling a part of the story of the surrounding ocean. It's an incredibly subtle art, akin to a physician feeling for a pulse, but on an oceanic scale. The sky, too, offers more clues than just the stars. The shapes and types of clouds can indicate the presence of land. Stationary, lens-shaped clouds often form over islands as moist air is pushed upwards by the landmass. The undersides of clouds might reflect the greenish tint of a shallow lagoon, even when the island itself is not yet visible. The behavior of seabirds is another crucial sign. Certain species, like the white tern, Manu oku, or the brown noddies, Noyo, have limited foraging ranges. Observing their flight paths at dawn, flying out to sea to feed, and dusk, returning to land to roost, can provide a reliable pointer towards land, even if it's 50 to 100 miles away. The navigator knows these ranges and habits intimately. Then there's the color of the water, which can change subtly as one approaches shallower areas or lagoons. The presence of floating debris like driftwood or coconuts, or even the specific patterns of bioluminescence in the water at night, can all contribute pieces to the navigational puzzle. One particularly sophisticated Micronesian technique, the principles of which were likely understood in Polynesia as well, is known as ATAC, or segment voyaging. This involved mentally moving a reference island, not the destination, but another island off to the side of the course, past the canoe as it progressed. The navigator would use specific stars to mark segments of the journey relative to this moving reference island, allowing them to keep track of their position even when out of sight of any land for extended periods. All these diverse elements, stars, swells, clouds, birds, currents, watercolor, are not seen in isolation. The true genius of the Polynesian navigator lies in their holistic understanding, their ability to synthesize these myriad, whispering ocean secrets into a coherent, dynamic picture of their position and their path forward. If your phone's GPS signal drops for a few minutes and you feel a flicker of panic trying to find the next freeway exit, imagine the calm, focused intellect of a navigator who, if their primary guiding star was temporarily obscured by a cloud, would seamlessly shift their attention to the feel of a faint ocean swell, the flight of a distant bird, or the subtle change in the wind's scent, always recalibrating, always reading the language of the vast Pacific. The universe was their open source operating system, and for those who knew the code, the signal was always strong. The moment of departure is a profound blend of sorrow and anticipation. You stand on the deck of the Vaca, watching the familiar silhouette of your home island, your Aina Hano, gradually recede. The faces of loved ones on the shore become smaller, their farewell chants fainter, until finally the island itself dips below the horizon, swallowed by the immense blue. A sense of irreversible commitment settles in. There's no turning back easily now. Before you lies the open ocean, a realm of powerful gods and spirits, of uncertainty, but also of boundless possibility, the promise of new lands, new beginnings. The navigator, stoic and focused, has already set the course, their eyes fixed on the subtle cues of sea and sky that only they can truly interpret. You quickly settle, or rather are forced to adapt, to the rhythm of life at sea. It's a rhythm dictated by the sun, the stars, the wind, and the relentless motion of the ocean. Days are filled with tasks essential for survival and the smooth running of the Vaca. Water needs to be bailed from the holes. Even the best-built canoes take on some water. The intricate lashings of sennit rope that hold the canoe together must be constantly checked and tightened as they stretch and contract with the moisture and stress. Fishing lines, baited with carved lures of shell or bone, are trailed behind the canoe, hoping to supplement the carefully rationed provisions with fresh protein. When a fish is caught, perhaps a sleek tuna or a colorful mahi-mahi, it's a moment of minor celebration and a welcome addition to the diet. Food preparation is simple. Preserved breadfruit paste might be pounded and mixed with coconut milk, or dried fish chewed slowly. Sails may need mending after a strong squall, or paddles used to help steer or propel the canoe during calms. There's a constant hum of purposeful activity. The social dynamics on such a long voyage are a delicate balance of cooperation, discipline, and mutual reliance. The navigator is the undisputed authority in matters of the journey, but a wise navigator also fosters a sense of shared purpose. The crew, often an extended family group or individuals chosen for their specific skills, strong paddlers, expert fishermen, capable healers, must work together seamlessly. Disputes, when they arise, are usually settled quickly, often through the guidance of elders or the navigator, as unresolved conflict can be disastrous for morale and efficiency on a cramped vessel far from land. In the long evenings, after the day's work is done and the stars begin to blaze in the tropical sky, stories might be told, ancient myths, legends of past voyages, humorous anecdotes to pass the time, reinforce cultural values, and keep spirits up. The ever present ocean is your constant companion, a source of both awe inspiring beauty and potential terror. You witness sunrises that paint the sky in impossible colors, the dazzling play of moonlight on the water, the phosphorescent trails of dolphins arcing alongside the canoe at night. But you also experience the raw power of a sudden tropical storm, with howling winds and mountainous waves that toss the vaca about like a toy, drenching everyone and everything, demanding all hands to work tirelessly to keep the vessel afloat and on course. Or there are the dreaded doldrums, when the wind dies completely for days on end, leaving you becalmed under a blistering sun, the sails hanging limp, progress stalled, and the precious water supplies dwindling. The ship's log, if they kept one in a written sense, probably would have dryly noted, Day 33, still very much surrounded by water. Wynne has apparently decided to take an extended vacation. Taro rations getting a bit monotonous. Crew member Maui attempting to teach a seagull to fetch coconuts. Optimism is admirable, but perhaps misplaced. Let's delve deeper into the extraordinary mind of the navigator. How do they store, access, and apply this vast and complex body of navigational knowledge without written records? It's far more than simple rote memorization. It's a deeply integrated, almost embodied system of understanding. A cornerstone of this system is the sophisticated use of oral traditions. Long, intricate chants, epic poems, and detailed genealogies are not just cultural artifacts. They are powerful mnemonic devices that encode vital navigational information. These chants might describe the sequential rising and setting points of guiding stars throughout the seasons, effectively creating a spoken star chart. They might link specific star paths to known island chains, or detail the characteristic swell patterns encountered when sailing particular routes. The myths and legends themselves often contain allegorical references to navigational principles or historical voyages. This oral library, passed down with meticulous accuracy from master to apprentice over generations, represents one of history's most sophisticated indigenous data storage and retrieval systems. Mainstream fact: the profound depth and accuracy of oral traditions in Polynesian cultures, which served as their libraries, laboratories, and history books, is a well-established anthropological and historical understanding. Beyond chance, it's believed that navigators employed techniques akin to what we might call memory palaces or complex mnemonic landscapes. They associated vast amounts of information with specific physical sensations, sequences of events, or even parts of their own bodies. For instance, a quirky and fascinating detail is that some navigators reportedly used their own hands and fingers as a kind of celestial calculator or protractor. The spaces between knuckles, the span of a hand, or the length of an arm held at a certain angle against the horizon could represent specific angular measurements for star altitudes or bearings. They might have small, personally significant talismans, perhaps a smooth piece of coral or a carved piece of wood with specific notches, each mark holding a universe of meaning intelligible only to them, a physical anchor for a vast mental database. The navigator is in a state of constant, heightened observation, even when they appear to be resting or asleep. They are always feeling the subtle movements of the vaka through the platform beneath them, attuning themselves to the slightest shifts in wind direction or swell patterns. They listen to the myriad sounds of the sea, the way the water gurgles or slaps against the hulls, each sound a potential indicator of speed or sea state. Their connection to the canoe and the ocean is so profound that the vaka becomes an extension of their own senses. This intense focus is often supported by spiritual practices. The navigator might perform private rituals at dawn and dusk, offering prayers or chants to the guiding spirits, the Atua and Kupua, who are believed to influence the winds, waves, and fortunes of the voyage. Maintaining this spiritual connection is considered as vital as their technical knowledge, ensuring they remain attuned to the subtle messages of the environment and open to intuitive insights. If you tried to get directions from one of these highly trained individuals by asking, "So is it left or right at that big cloud that looks a bit like a pig?" Зрение. Они не просто рыгали и показывали. They'd likely launch into a 20-verse poetic saga detailing the cloud's lineage, its spiritual significance, its likely behavior over the next 6 hours, and how its shadow interacts with the third swell from the northeast, all before calmly telling you to bear slightly to port. And you, with your modern brain, would probably still be wondering about the pig cloud. Days melt into weeks on the open ocean. The initial excitement of departure gives way to the steady, sometimes monotonous routine of the long haul. The psychological toll of being a tiny, isolated community in such a vast and indifferent environment can be significant. There are moments of breathtaking beauty, yes, but also periods of intense boredom, discomfort, and anxiety. The vastness of the ocean, initially inspiring, can also feel oppressive, the horizon an unyielding circle that never seems to change. It's during these times that the leadership and wisdom of the navigator and the elders on board are most crucial. One of the greatest challenges is unexpected weather. A sudden, violent squall can materialize with frightening speed, demanding immediate and coordinated action. Lowering and securing the sail, manning steering paddles to keep the canoe from broaching in high waves, bailing furiously as water crashes over the decks. Or conversely, the canoe might sail into the doldrums, a region of frustrating calms and light, baffling winds near the equator. Here, the great crab claw sail hangs limp and useless. Progress can slow to a crawl, perhaps relying on arduous paddling if an island is thought to be near, or simply drifting patiently, conserving energy, and most importantly, water. If the voyage is unexpectedly prolonged by storms or calms, the careful management of resources becomes absolutely critical. Water, carried in gourds or bamboo tubes, is the most precious commodity and is strictly rationed. Food supplies, the preserved breadfruit, dried taro, and dried fish, are also carefully monitored. Every mouthful is precious. In such trying circumstances, it's only natural for moments of doubt or fear to ripple through the crew. Are we still on course? Will the food and water last? Will we ever see land again? The navigator must project an aura of calm confidence, even if they harbor their own private concerns. They might draw upon their repertoire of stories, reminding the crew of past voyages that overcame similar challenges or led chants and rituals to bolster spirits and reaffirm their connection to their gods and ancestors. Humor, too, plays a vital role in diffusing tension and maintaining cohesion. The ability to laugh in the face of adversity is a powerful survival tool. Scholarly debate continues regarding the precise nature and intent of many of these ancient voyages. While the remarkable capability for planned two-way voyaging between known island groups, like the well-documented connections between Tahiti and Hawaii, or various archipelagos in western Polynesia, is widely accepted, there's ongoing discussion about the dynamics of initial colonization voyages to more distant and previously unknown islands. Were these primarily intentional exploration missions with planned return, or were some of them more committed, one-way settlement endeavors, perhaps driven by factors like severe population pressure, resource depletion, or political conflict on the home island? The archaeological evidence of rapid settlement across vast distances, linguistic connections, and the genetic trails left in plant, animal, and human populations all provide clues. Oral traditions also speak of both deliberate explorations and exiles. It's likely that both types of voyages occurred, but discerning the exact balance and the specific motivations behind each colonizing pulse across the Pacific remains a complex and fascinating area of research. Imagine the suggestion box on the Vaca if such a thoroughly modern and probably unwelcome concept existed. It would likely be filled with recurring, heartfelt pleas. Are we there yet? Seriously, are we? And perhaps, could the person who keeps whistling slightly off-key please consider the collective sanity, followed by request for more varied menu options. Day 47, another dried fish. It's looking back at me with the same weary expression I feel. Democratic traditions, even in their most rudimentary form, surely had to start with complaints about the food and annoying shipmates. Sickness or injury on board is another harsh reality. With no access to modern medicine, traditional remedies made from plants carried on board or knowledge of healing practices are all they have. An infected wound, a fever, or a broken bone could be life-threatening. The Polynesian voyagers were resilient and possessed a wealth of practical knowledge, but the dangers were ever present. Every loss would be keenly felt, not just for the individual, but for the impact on the small community and its collective skills. Then, after what seems like an eternity of endless blue, an eternity of trusting in the unseen, the navigator begins to detect the first, almost imperceptible, signs of distant land. It might be a subtle shift in the dominant swell pattern, a faint rebound wave that only their trained body can feel through the deck of the Vaca. Perhaps they spot a specific type of land-roosting bird, like a frigate bird or a booby, flying with purpose in a particular direction at dawn or dusk, a sign that land is within its foraging range. Or they might observe a stationary cloud formation on the horizon, the kind that often lingers over an island, or notice a faint greenish tint reflected on the underside of low clouds, hinting at a shallow lagoon below. These are the whispering ocean secrets, beginning to speak more clearly, confirming that the navigator's intricate mental calculations and tireless observations have been accurate. A ripple of excitement, a surge of renewed hope electrifies the Vaca. Exhausted faces light up. The weariness of the long voyage is momentarily forgotten. The navigator's focus intensifies. They are now cross referencing multiple indicators, their senses on high alert, searching for confirmation. This is a critical phase. Missing a small, low lying atoll in the vastness of the ocean is tragically easy and could mean sailing on into oblivion. The tension is palpable. Every eye scans the horizon, desperate for a tangible sign. And then it happens. A cry from the lookout, or perhaps from the navigator themselves. Away, he ein. Oh, land exclamation mark, a smudge on the distant horizon, at first indistinguishable from a cloud, but gradually, agonizingly slowly, it resolves into something more solid, perhaps the dark peak of a volcanic island, a low line of green vegetation, or the telltale shimmer of calm water indicating a lagoon. The emotional impact of this first visual sighting of land after weeks or months at sea is overwhelming. There are shouts of joy, tears of relief, prayers of gratitude offered to the gods and ancestors who have guided them safely. The navigator, though perhaps allowing a rare smile, remains intensely focused. The journey is not quite over. Now they must carefully assess this new land, scan its coastline for dangers like hidden reefs or inhospitable cliffs, and search for a safe passage, a welcoming break in the reef that will allow them to bring the Vaca and its precious cargo of life into a sheltered lagoon or onto a sandy beach. The promise of fresh water, abundant food, and a new home is tantalizingly close. The approach to a new island is a phase of intense concentration and careful maneuvering. The navigator, who has brought you across thousands of miles of open ocean, now scans the coastline with a practiced eye. The joyful exuberance of spotting land is tempered with caution. Not all islands are welcoming. Hidden reefs can rip the hulls of a canoe to shreds. Strong currents can pull a vessel onto treacherous shores, and not every beach offers a safe landing. You watch as the navigator directs the crew, perhaps pointing towards a V-shaped pattern in the breaking waves that often indicates a deeper channel, a passage through the protective coral reef that encircles many volcanic islands and atolls. The great crab claw sail is expertly adjusted, or perhaps lowered entirely if the passage is narrow, the Vaca propelled forward by strong paddlers, their strokes rhythmic and powerful, their voices joined in a work chant to focus their energy. The tension is palpable as you glide through the turquoise waters of the lagoon, the vibrant colors of the coral visible beneath, teeming with fish. Then the moment arrives. The twin hulls of the Vaca gently grate onto a sandy beach. The feeling of solid, unmoving ground beneath your feet for the first time in weeks or even months is almost disorienting, a strange and wonderful sensation. Legs accustomed to the constant sway of the canoe feel wobbly, unsteady. You and your fellow voyagers step onto this new shore, a mixture of profound relief, overwhelming gratitude to the gods and to the navigator, and perhaps a touch of apprehension about what this new world holds. The air is thick with unfamiliar scents, damp earth, strange flowers, the musk of unknown animals. The sounds are different too. The calls of new birds, the rustling of unfamiliar trees in the breeze. The first priority is fresh water. Small groups fan out, cautiously exploring the immediate vicinity, searching for springs, streams, or freshwater lenses that often accumulate beneath coral atolls. Edible plants are sought, fruits, nuts, tubers that might be native to this island. Are there signs of previous human inhabitants, abandoned village sites, old garden plots, or perhaps even a welcoming or wary party emerging from the coastal forest? Mainstream fact: a core strategy of Polynesian voyagers was to carry with them a portable agricultural kit. They didn't just arrive hoping for the best, they actively transported their essential food plants like taro, breadfruit, yams, bananas, sugarcane, and coconuts, as well as their domesticated animals, pigs, dogs, and chickens. This practice of establishing a transported landscape allowed them to recreate their familiar subsistence patterns and rapidly transform the ecology of newly settled islands, ensuring their survival and cultural continuity. Imagine that first exploratory walk. Okay, team, the lead explorer might say, Priority 1, water. Priority 2, anything that doesn't look like it actively wants to eat us. Priority 3, find a good spot to plant Grandma's prize-winning taro. And if anyone sees anything resembling a giant crab with a taste for voyagers, please mention it calmly. Once survival basics, like water and initial food sources, are secured, the monumental task of establishing a new home begins. This is where the true resilience and adaptability of your people shine. Shelters must be built, initially perhaps simple lean-tos made from branches and leaves, later more substantial fail or hail constructed from timber and thatch, mirroring the architectural styles of their homeland, but utilizing the materials available on this new island. Land needs to be cleared for gardens, a laborious process involving felling trees with stone adzes and burning away undergrowth. The precious taro corms, breadfruit saplings, and other plants carefully nurtured during the voyage are planted with ceremony and hope. You learn quickly which local timbers are best for construction or canoe building, which native plants are edible or medicinal, and which fish teem in the lagoon. If this new island is already inhabited, which became increasingly likely during later phases of Polynesian expansion as the ocean began to fill up, the dynamics of arrival are complex and fraught with potential. Would you be met with curiosity, friendship, and an offer to trade? Or would it be suspicion, hostility, and conflict over resources? Polynesian societies had well-established protocols for encounters, for diplomacy, for establishing relationships, but also for warfare if necessary. Assimilation, intermarriage, or the establishment of separate but neighboring communities were all possibilities. The ability to navigate these social currents was as vital as navigating the ocean currents. Back in the nascent village, the knowledge of navigation, the sacred lore that brought you here, must be preserved and passed on. The navigator, now a revered elder, begins the long process of training a new generation. Young, observant children are chosen, perhaps their own offspring or those from other high-ranking families, to begin the arduous apprenticeship. They learn the star names, the chants, the swell patterns, sitting at the navigator's feet, listening to the stories, perhaps accompanying them on short fishing trips that become practical lessons in reading the sea and sky. The survival of this new community and its ability to maintain contact with other islands or explore further depends on this unbroken chain of knowledge. It's a quirky and telling detail that Polynesians developed such an incredibly granular understanding of their environment. They often had distinct names for hundreds of varieties of fish, for countless types of plants, and even for subtle variations in wind, rain, and cloud formations. This wasn't just poetic fancy, it was a reflection of their deep ecological wisdom and their absolute dependence on accurately interpreting these subtle environmental cues for everything from farming to fishing to voyaging. You can almost hear the mock serious debates between apprentice navigators. No, that's clearly the Malualua wind bringing gentle showers. If you think that's the blustery Kona, your taro patch is going to be disappointingly dry. And don't even get me started on your flawed interpretation of that cirrus cloud formation. Over generations, as your community adapts to the unique conditions of this new island, its specific climate, its particular resources, its geographical layout, a distinct local culture begins to emerge. While retaining the core linguistic, social, and mythological framework of its Polynesian heritage, it develops its own unique dialects, its own variations in art forms, social customs, and traditions. This is how the incredible diversity within Polynesian cultures arose, from the hula and aloha spirit of Hawaii to the haka and intricate carvings of the Maori, from the giant moai of Rapa Nui to the gentle songs of Tahiti, all branches of the same great Austronesian family tree, each shaped by its unique island environment and history. You can imagine the first official island council meeting of the new settlement. Someone would stand up and declare, "Okay, I move that we officially name this place Paradise Point, or maybe really far from where we used to live island. All in favor? Excellent. Now, agenda item number 2. There's a rather peculiar species of flightless bird on the North Shore that seems to have a penchant for stealing shiny objects. We need to form a subcommittee to investigate its habits and perhaps negotiate a treaty. Volunteers? For some voyages, particularly those of exploration or to maintain links within an established network of islands, the journey was not complete with landfall on a new shore. The decision would be made to return to the Aina Kahiko, the ancestral homeland. Why undertake another perilous voyage? Perhaps to report the discovery of new lands, to bring back valuable resources or desirable marriage partners, to fetch more settlers, or simply to maintain the vital social, economic, and genetic connections that bound island communities together. The navigator now faces a new challenge, finding their way back to their starting point, which from the perspective of the open ocean might be just as small and elusive a target as the island they just left. They must essentially reverse their mental map, utilizing their knowledge of seasonal wind shifts and current patterns. The information gathered on the outbound journey, the behavior of swells, the sequence of stars, the time taken to travel between certain points, now becomes crucial data for plotting the return. For instance, if they sailed out against a prevailing trade wind, they might time their return to coincide with seasonal wind shifts that would favor their journey home. Scholarly debate continues regarding the frequency, regularity, and reach of these long-distance, two-way voyages across the entirety of the Polynesian Triangle. While there is strong archaeological, linguistic, and traditional evidence for sustained, planned two-way contact between certain island groups for significant periods, the connections between the Society Islands, like Tahiti and the Hawaiian archipelago, or between Samoa, Fiji, and Tonga in western Polynesia, are notable examples. the feasibility and routineness of such return journeys to the most distant and isolated outliers, like Rapa Nui or Aotearoa, remain subjects of active discussion. Were some of these far flung settlements, once established, effectively isolated, their connection to the homeland eventually severed by the sheer difficulty and danger of the return voyage? Or did sporadic contact continue for longer than the current evidence definitively shows? It's a complex puzzle, piecing together oral histories that speak of return voyages with the often ambiguous physical evidence. Imagine the scene if, or when, a voyaging canoe successfully returned to its home island after a long absence. The excitement, the feasting, the celebrations would be immense. The voyagers would be greeted as heroes, their stories eagerly devoured. The navigator, having proven their skill and spiritual power by not only finding new land, but also by returning safely, would see their status and renown reach even greater heights. The new knowledge they brought back about new islands, new routes, new resources would be carefully integrated into the collective wisdom of their people, enriching their understanding of the wider world and refining their navigational lore for future generations. The jokes and relief would flow freely. "We're back," they'd announce, stepping onto the familiar beach. "And you will not believe the size of the fish over there. Huge. Though, fair warning, their coconuts are a bit introspective. Oh, and about that cousin of yours who stowed away, Cowie. Yeah, Cowie decided to stay. Something about becoming the great high chief of the local crab population. It's a long story, involves a lot of gesturing and some very shiny shells. Don't ask." The legacy of these Polynesian star navigators is written across the face of the Pacific Ocean. The thousands of islands they discovered and settled, from the tiniest atoll to the great volcanic archipelagos, stand as a testament to their unparalleled skill, their boundless courage, and their profound connection to the natural world. This was humanity's final great migration into pristine territories, an astonishing feat of exploration accomplished without metal, without written language as we know it, without the instruments we deem essential. They were, quite simply, the greatest navigators the world has ever known, their voyages arguably surpassing even those of the Vikings or later European explorers in terms of the distances covered relative to the size of their targets and the sophistication of their non-instrumental techniques. This incredible body of knowledge, this intricate art of wayfinding, was passed down through generations. But with the arrival of Western explorers and the subsequent profound cultural changes, it was nearly lost. Traditional voyaging canoes largely disappeared, replaced by Western vessels, and the old ways of navigating were often supplanted or forgotten. However, in a remarkable story of cultural revival that began in the latter half of the 20th century, this ancestral wisdom has seen a powerful resurgence. Inspired by the dedication of a few remaining traditional navigators and the passion of a new generation, replica voyaging canoes like the iconic Hokulea were built. Using traditional methods and guided by navigators like Mau Piailug from Sadawal in Micronesia, who still possess the ancient knowledge, these canoes successfully retraced the legendary voyages of their ancestors, proving to the world, and importantly, to the descendants of these great explorers, that the stories were true, that their ancestors were indeed capable of such incredible feats. Navigators like Nainoa Thompson, the first Hawaiian to practice long distance, non instrument navigation in centuries, have helped to revitalize this heritage, ensuring that the whispering ocean secrets are once again being heard and understood. The enduring lessons from these star navigators are many. They speak to the boundless potential of human ingenuity, our capacity to achieve extraordinary things through deep observation, meticulous learning, and unwavering determination. They highlight the profound importance of living in harmony with nature, not as its master, but as an attentive and respectful partner. And they underscore the critical value of preserving ancestral wisdom, the often unseen knowledge systems that can hold vital keys to understanding our world and our place within it. The stars still wheel overhead, the ocean swells still pulse across the vast Pacific, the winds still blow, and the birds still fly their ancient paths. The whispering ocean secrets are still out there for those who learn how to listen, how to feel, how to see with more than just their eyes. As our voyage tonight comes to its end, let the image of that Vaka sailing silently under a canopy of brilliant stars fill your mind. Let the gentle rocking of the canoe, the soft creak of the lashings, the whisper of the wind in the pandanus sail lull you into a state of deep relaxation. The navigator is at peace, attuned to the universe, confident in their path. The crew sleeps soundly, trusting in their guide. The vast ocean, once a realm of challenge, now becomes a comforting embrace. You have traveled far, seen wonders, and now it is time to rest on the shores of sleep. The journey is complete. The island of dreams awaits. Let the gentle currents of slumber carry you there. Good night.